No, that's good, as long as someone's doing it. All right, name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. So we've got part 2 of our series. We've got Rami and Sarah, who are going to discuss starting from scratch. Do you want to do it here or at the end? All right. Sure, I'll set it up. Okay.
Do you want to tell them or do you want to set it up?
Let me set it up and then you can do it. Let me do it for you. Yeah. Let me do it and then I'll set it up for you guys.
Okay, so we're back. What's this actually?
Oh, that's not tonight.
That's not for us,
No,
right?
later.
Later? Is that for us?
No, I just put that for a reminder for me for later.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're back. We tried to poll as many people as possible to figure out what you guys wanted to hear about, and the overwhelming response was that people want to hear about how do you start. Like, what's your starting point when you're interested or ready or whatever, trying to get into a relationship. So I have the disclaimer, I talk about relationships a lot in the East. I've never actually done this one. So let's see how this goes, okay? This will be a very give and take feedback kind of talk because I've never done it this black and white before.
And we expect you guys to not agree. And we want to hear what you think, and if you think this is ridiculous or not, and then we can have a little debate about it.
I mean,
right?
I have an opinion, obviously, but we can discuss.
Yeah, because there's no black and white answer here. These are, a bit of opinion, let's say.
Okay, so before we jump right into like the nitty gritty of logistics, we just want to get a few foundational principles straight. Okay, so first, if the relationship is not godly, it's not working. Okay, I think everybody's under that assumption. We're a more mature group here, so everybody understands that unless it's built on this foundation, it's not happening. It's not going to work out. Okay.
Okay. So that's essentially what Sarah was saying before. Is before we jump into when to start a relationship or what circumstances lead to that or what should boy or girl X do, we just want to say the beginning point is ourselves. Are you ready to be in a relationship? We're not going to talk about this much at all, but are you in a place in your life where you are ready to be in a relationship? And we're not talking about I'm done school or I'm in the process of school or I'm this part in my life or not. We're talking about not just that, but emotionally, historically, meaning you just got out of something, or your spirituality, like your relationship with God, are you there or not there? So it's not just being ready to start in a relationship is not just I have a stable career or I have a paycheck or whatever. There's much more to that.
So we did also talk a lot last week about baggage and whether you've been able to reconcile issues, whether you've been able to reconcile trauma from previous relationships. So that also factors into whether you're ready. So if you're emotionally ready, that means that you sort of dealt with and coped with everything else, and the next person that you date is not going to pay for what happened to you in the last relationship, right? And circumstantially means, it's probably not a good idea to start a relationship if you're planning to fly off for 6 years to a different continent, right? So circumstance has to allow for a relationship happening. And then spiritually, right? Are you in a position where you're just actively seeking a relationship, or are you actively seeking him? And the point that we wanted to make with the second one is that your life's focus shouldn't be about finding a person, finding a guy or finding a girl, or making yourself into a good boyfriend or a good girlfriend. You need to be a good person, and when you're a good person, that will come. And that's on the same line as when you're fixated on him and you're fixated on your spirituality, those things will come. But your life's focus can't be just about this, which is ironic because that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the hour that we're here.
So we're done talking about this now. Okay.
Well, sort of.
Kind of. Okay, where do we start? The most important thing is to really get out there. You're not going to meet anybody new if you are going to the same places every day.
With the same people.
Right. And so you really have to put yourself out there, and that means being uncomfortable, being in places that you normally wouldn't go to, in places that you wouldn't normally be, whatever other meeting or whatever other situation, whatever other service, whatever it is, things that you normally wouldn't do. Because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you should expect the same results. So you got to do something different to get different results.
Okay, now we're going to jump into the part that we've never done before, okay? So, they asked us to talk about where do you start. So this is a very, very oversimplified version of where do you start. And we're going to take it from a few perspectives. We're going to go guys first because it's easier to make fun of guys and not girls. And then we're going to
That's
go
why I'm
girls.
here.
Okay? Yeah. The boys are like the sacrificial lamb. You're going to break the ice. We're going to, hate on you guys for a little bit and then we'll move to the girls. So, okay. This was a pictorial that we made. Well, I made while I was at work. I was obviously not very productive that day. Okay? So, we're going to walk through this. I want to emphasize that this is a very, very oversimplified process, okay? So there's probably 100 things that happen in between each of the arrows, but this is like an overview of the ideal situation. I also want a disclaimer that there is a lot of personal opinion inside of this, okay? And I'm very happy for you guys to fight me on it, very happy, because it's going to make a fantastic conversation, okay? So, let's start. So,
This is for a guy.
This is for a guy, for guys, okay? So the scene is, you are somewhere, wherever it is, somewhere diverse that's outside of your box, and there is somebody there who has caught your eye. That's it. That's all the information you have. Now what? Okay? The comments that we got last week was like, what's the very first step? Like, let's break it down to the very first thing, okay? So somebody has caught your eye. Now what? So, have you had a conversation with her? One of the questions that we got was, is it okay for a guy to ask out a girl that he's seen but never spoken to?
Which sounded weird. I mean, never spoken to means like, oh, hey.
You're pretty, can I take you on
Can I take you on a date? Which is odd.
So, okay, while very flattering, because there is no girl in the world who does not like to be called pretty, it doesn't exist, okay? A little creepy, okay? A little bit. Like, let's just take a poll. How many girls in this room would go out with a guy who they have never spoken to?
You don't have to answer that. Because if you do, it'll be awkward. Just think about it.
Okay. I would not. Personally, I would not, and I would not have before Rami, okay? So, the first question, boys, is, have you had a conversation with her? Because there needs to be a little bit more that justifies you asking her out than I like her hair. Okay? So, yes, you've had a conversation with her, great. If you have not, have a conversation. Okay? Boys, I know that this is hard. Okay? I know that it's hard in a situation to walk up to somebody who you may not know and strike up a conversation. I know this. Okay? I know this. And it is definitely harder for people that are introverted. I know this. Okay? I don't care. Because that is your role. Your role, and we're going to get to that in the next slide, your role, God-given role, as men, is to be leaders and initiators. And this is where it starts. This is where you start to practice what you are going to be doing in a marriage, which is leading and initiating. And it's hard, and you'll probably strike out a few times, and that's okay. But if there is somebody that you see that you are interested in, go and strike up a conversation. About anything, anything. Just get your feet wet. It's okay. Anything. Do you want to, I feel like you're going to jump in.
No, but, and this is a little different, with, and we'll talk about technology a little bit more, but guys usually, with technology changing, guys sometimes feel that they have like a cheat or a scapegoat where you can just like
slide into her DMs.
Yeah, text her once or whatever.
People get that reference, right? I'm not too old.
So, what we're really saying is that you need to have you're best to have a non-virtual conversation, like a face-to-face conversation, not a, text message here. I got your number from whoever, or Facebook, whatever. A real conversation.
And we're going to talk about technology a little bit later because it's something that's really changed the game. Like, even from when we were dating to now, it's really, really changed the game. But for now, okay, in whatever means, okay, strike up a conversation. If you feel like you can't do that, you probably need to go back a few steps and go back to the basics. Because even though your role as being a leader and initiator might be uncomfortable, it doesn't change the fact that that's your role. And it doesn't change the fact that that's your responsibility. And if you can't do that, this whole dating game is going to be a lot harder for you. A lot harder. Dare I say almost impossible. Okay? So let's assume you've had a conversation with her. Okay? Or you didn't, and then you went to have a conversation with her, and now we're here. Are you interested enough to want to continue the conversation? Okay? It doesn't have to be that she like meets all of your 25 criteria and this is wife material. We don't know yet. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4 conversations, something like that. We don't know. Okay? It doesn't mean that you think that this girl is like gonna be your fiance tomorrow. It means, was the conversation good? Yes. Was it comfortable? Yes. Would you be interested in having another conversation with this person? Yes?
In a one-on-one setting.
Ask for it. Ask for it. When I was here a couple months ago, I can't remember actually the last time that I was here, we talked about myths, okay? And what we really, really tried to accomplish in that talk is to make people understand that if you go out for coffee with somebody once, you are not engaged. You're not. And there are no expectations on either side if you go out for coffee with somebody once. And if somebody asks you out, girls, this is also on us. If somebody asks you out for coffee, do not buy wedding magazines. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because nobody is under any commitment after a coffee date. Nobody. It is exactly what it is. It is continuing the conversation. The conversation was nice, it was comfortable, maybe there was a little bit of chemistry, maybe there was a little, banter, back and forth. Great, we're just gonna have another conversation. That's it. That's all it is. Okay? So if you feel like the conversation was interesting enough for you to want to have another one, ask her out. Go out for coffee. And there's a lot that happens in between here, okay? It doesn't have to be one conversation. It could be 1, 2, 3, 5. But the point is, at some point, you gotta make a move. And at some point, you have to ask her out. Because at some point, you have to express your interest in continuing to converse with her on a one-on-one basis, not on Instagram.
Something clear. Like don't shy away from asking someone. Don't be, don't make her guess like, oh, is he want to go on a date with me, or is he just like, wants to, we're in the same location so we should just see each other or whatever. Make it very clear, because you want the girl to know that you're actually interested, and that will make her feel at ease and at least understand what's going on. The less clear that you are, the more likely that this is not going the way that you want it to be.
And I just also want to put a little asterisk here, okay? So I want to divide this situation into 2 separate categories. So one is, there's somebody that you don't previously know, okay? You've met her at whatever, and you've had your first few conversations and whatever, and you ask her out. In that situation, it's very clear that you want to pursue her, or you want to have this conversation not in a platonic manner, okay? The complicated one is when you've been friends with somebody for however long, or you know them socially, and then you ask them out for coffee. In that situation, boys, okay, guys, men, whatever, okay, it is very, very important for you to be clear about your intentions, okay? Very important. I am not a fan of this whole concept of platonic guy and girl best friends. I don't actually think it's possible, okay? I don't. And like going out for coffee and whatever, like 2 singles, I'm old school maybe, I'm conservative, whatever. I think it's silly and I think it's naive, okay? If you are previously friends with her, be very clear. Can I take you out for coffee? Be very clear, okay? Okay, so you ask her out for coffee. There are multiple ways that this could go, okay?
Not just 2, but we just picked 2.
3, okay? So either she says yes, and it goes well, okay? Ideal situation. You go out for coffee, it's great, conversation was easy, everybody had a great time, okay? Everybody gets up to leave, then what? Don't play any games, boys. Don't play any games. If you had a good time, tell her, I had a good time. Let's do this again sometime. That's it. You're not proposing. She's not buying wedding magazines, right, girls? We're going to talk about this later. But she's not buying wedding magazines, okay? If you think the date went well, tell her before you leave that you want to do this again. Don't make her guess. Don't make her sit there and agonize for whatever is the arbitrary amount of time that's acceptable that makes you not look eager, that whether you're going to text her or not. What? We're adults. We're adults. Okay? You had a good time? Tell her, I had a good time. Do you want to do this again sometime? That's it. Very simple. This whole game of like, oh, I can't text her for like 48 hours because then she's gonna think I'm thirsty. That's what the kids say, thirsty, whatever. Okay. We're adults. We're adults. It's unnecessary. And it's unnecessary complications. It doesn't need to be there. Nobody's going to think any less of you if you text her like the next day versus in 7 days. Nobody cares. Nobody has time for this kind of games. Right? So, tell her you want to do this again, and then do this again soon. Okay? Even if it takes you a few weeks to logistically arrange it, ask her soon. Okay? You went out on Monday, and it went really well. Tell her you want to do it again. Text her on Wednesday. Say, when are you free again? Whatever. There's no like predefined set time, okay? But don't play games. Don't unnecessarily prolong it because you're worried about some image. Nobody cares. Nobody's thinking about that, right?
So it could have went well, and we'll talk about that after. And it could have went poorly. Like this could have been you sat with her. That was so awkward. We had nothing to talk about. Like the conversation was whatever, not what you wanted, and that happens. And you can either say, okay, that was an interesting time. I don't want to do this again, which is very fair. You can say, you know what, that was awkward, but maybe we just had an awkward time and we can do this again. Or you can just not ask her again. Like that's okay.
So I pulled a few of the young kids earlier. I was talking to a few of the young kids about relationship stuff. Like by young kids, I mean, I don't know how young people are in this room, but like they've been graduated for like a year or two. That's young to me because I'm old, okay? And so I asked some of the guys who are in a situation like this, what do you guys do in a situation like this? Do you like just let it die naturally, don't say anything, and like not ask her out again?
Ghost her?
Yeah, ghost her. That's the
word. Yeah.
We learned ghost her, okay? Or do you tell her that you don't have any intentions of asking her out again? Okay? If I were a girl in that situation, I was trying to think what would I prefer. And ladies, if there's feedback, like let us know, okay? The response that I got, which I thought was actually like decent, I guess, is if it's been like 7 or 8 or 9 dates and you're at the point where you're like ready to define the relationship, then he would say like, this isn't for me, like I don't think that this is working out or whatever. If it's been like 1 date and like there's been nothing really serious talked about, he would just kind of let it die. Like just not ask her again and khalas, and she'd get the point and he'd get the point and that's it. But I don't know what your thoughts are about that. Girls, guys, anybody. Aki's setting up some anonymous texting or something, so even if you don't want to put your hand up, you can text something that Aki's going to see somewhere.
Trying to make it work.
And then we'll get to that, okay? But just think about that, because that's kind of a gray area for me, and I'm not very current with the young kids right now, so I don't know. Okay, so, went badly. In whatever method you choose, you don't want to do it again. Okay, very good. Okay? It went well, and you want to do it again. Okay? Here is where we come to the point where people like to argue with me, but I don't care. Okay? I'm going to just disclaimer that this is personal opinion, and I don't care. You can fight me, but I don't care. It's not going to change my mind. Okay? Let's say you've had a few good dates. Okay? My general number, my ballpark is 5. Okay? That's my ballpark. Okay? 5. Remember how we said that if you ask a girl out for coffee, she's not buying wedding magazines, you're not engaged, you're not even actually dating.
You just had coffee.
Yeah. Is this revolutionary? Are people like gonna like rebel? Okay? If somebody asks you out for coffee and you go out for coffee, you're not actually dating. Okay? You're not dating until he defines the relationship. Okay? You're not. But here's the gray area. The gray area is when does he do that? And I'm very clear that he does that. And we're going to talk about why it's his role specifically to define the relationship, because we keep mentioning this, that guys are the leaders and the initiators. But my ballpark time frame is 5 dates. At 5 dates, you don't need to know that you want to marry this girl or not, but you need to know if you want to date this girl or not after 5 dates. This is like, I mean, plus or minus whatever your like opinion is, whatever. Not plus too much, please, okay? But around 5 dates is when you generally know whether you want to date this person seriously or whether this is not working out for you. And at that point, it is his job and his responsibility to define the relationship. You're dating or you're not. Girls, we have a tendency to let this go on for too long.
And same with guys. Guys have a tendency not to want to commit to anything. And this means, this is a form of commitment. And so you know, I think it's harder for girls in that like a guy's sometimes happy in the situation that he's in. Like, you know, we're going out for coffee, we're talking, we're texting, we're doing whatever, but you haven't formally put a name to it. And I think that uh, it ends up driving the girl crazy. Like, because at some point in time, you need to know, am I in or am I not? Is this serious or is this something that is just a whatever? And so it is the guy's role to do that. The girl shouldn't expect that to come too quickly. Like, sometimes, you know, you expect it like day 2, day 3. Hey, we went out for coffee a few times, had dinner or something. It was fun. Let's call this something more. And the guy's tendencies to, you know, make sure that he's where he wants to be before he defines anything. And so both girls and boys have tendencies to not do this, or to do this differently. And so we just want to talk about that more.
So we want to clarify that from a guy's perspective, don't leave it too long, okay? Because that's unfair. And honestly, if she understands the roles pretty well, she probably won't wait for you. Because why would she? She's only been on 5 days with you. She doesn't really know you. She doesn't know if you're worth it or not worth it. So don't leave this too long because it's unfair. It's unfair expectations. Girls, okay, don't stick around for an indefinite amount of time and this person is not defining their relationship. But also, like Rami said, don't buy a wedding magazine after the first coffee date. Okay?
It could go poorly, yeah.
The last thing is you ask her out and she says no, or she says yes and then you ask her out again and she says no. Okay?
It's okay. It happens.
It happens.
Happens to all of us. Not a big deal. Moving on.
Shake it off.
Yeah.
Get back up and ask the next one. No problem. Okay? I know that this is easy coming from a girl, right? Because I don't have to ask you out. I don't have to be vulnerable and I don't have to put myself out there. I get that. Okay? But what I can tell you from a girl's perspective, guys, is that understanding the level of difficulty that this requires, it is that much more admirable when you can do it and do it well. It is that much more admirable. Like, I can tell you, before I met Rami, okay, I had never been in a situation where somebody took initiative like this. It was always one of those, like, oh, friends, and we, like, fell into it or whatever. We're okay to acknowledge that we've all been in past relationships, right? This is a progressive crowd, okay? So it was one of those things where, like, you just kind of fall into it and you're friends and then, oh my gosh, are we dating? Oh my gosh, just like that. You just kind of fall into it, okay? Until I met Rami, I didn't know that this initiative was what I wanted.
And don't get me wrong, I didn't do this very well. So I tried to fall into it because it's much easier to not be as...
But I didn't let him.
Yeah, she didn't let me at all. Because it's much easier to, you know, not put yourself out there. Because if you put yourself out there and she says no, it hurts. And you don't want to be vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable, you know, you don't want to feel like someone rejected you. And so I tried the, like, you know, not being so clear, hanging out and being in this, like, similar locations that she was in, knowing that whatever was going on. She was in a book club with her friends. I happened to join a book club, like, you know. I don't read at all. Like, I read like 4 books total lifetime. All of a sudden I'm in a book club. What am I doing there? Like, and so I tried just sliding in and doing, you know, not being as clear as I should have been, and it didn't work. And I had to be very clear before, you know, I even had a chance for her to go out with me. And so the only when I was clear were we able to move on with our relationship. Before that, I was not clear and it didn't work.
And from a girl's perspective, okay, so, like, you may have been trying to, like, whatever, just, like, follow into it and whatever, and I wasn't actually seriously at the time considering him because I felt like I wasn't, like, looking for a relationship and whatever. But the point at which he got, like, just transparent, like, listen, black and white, I want to take you out, I think that this could be something, like, just yes or no, whether or not I was interested, it gave me pause and forced me to, like, think about it. Because if I say no, okay, he's gone, like, khalas. And if I say yes, like, do you know what I mean? So it's not like something that you can just kind of procrastinate about or put off. Like, that initiative puts you in a position where you have to actually consider it and make a decision, as opposed to just, you know, sweeping it under the rug. Does that make sense? Does anybody want to fight anything so far? Anybody disagree with anything so far?
Guys, so far?
Abuna disagree.
No, I have a question. I like your magic numbers, so I want to question two pieces. The first piece is the when to decide if this went good or bad.
Like after the date?
After the date. So I went to date one time, I didn't feel good, so does that mean okay, call it off?
Depends how bad it went. Yeah. It was really, really bad, yeah.
So I've had good friends who went on a date and walked away and said, I cannot converse with that person ever again in my whole life. Like, the things that person said were so, like, just backwards and just deal breakers left, right, and center. And I also have friends who went on dates and said, you know, this was awkward, but it wasn't that bad, and it could have just been because we don't really know each other that it's awkward. I will try again. And then tried 2-3 times. One of them, it ended up in a relationship that was very successful. One of them, they tried 2-3 times, and after 2-3 times, it didn't work out. So what I would say is that if you don't want to, like, stab yourself with a fork in the eye, try again. Because maybe it could just be awkward. Like, the reality is, if you don't know this person, the conversation may not be, like, seamless, right? Because you don't know this person. And I personally, I hate small talk. I hate it, okay? But I can tell you, our first date, okay?
You were.
Our first date, okay, I was late. Okay, we'll just, this is a safe space, okay? I was late because I didn't want to go.
And extremely sketchy.
And very sketchy. That's besides the point, okay? I was late because I didn't want to go, and I was awkward because I didn't feel like I wanted to date him. Obviously, I was wrong. Look at him, okay? Okay? I didn't feel like I wanted to date him, so I was awkward. And I'm a very, like, vocal person. I'm like, I can talk to a brick wall if I need to. And that day, I was very, like, right? I just didn't want to be there. But I didn't want to kill myself, so we tried again. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, your standards, your threshold for it being horrible, it has to be like the worst thing that's ever happened to you in order for you to think that there's zero potential in this. And what I also want to, like, emphasize is that if you go on a second coffee date and a third coffee date, you're still not committed. You're still not dating. You can go on 3 coffee dates and then never see the person again, and that's okay. Nobody has any unrealistic expectations of you. The expectations start to come when he defines the relationship. So my magic number is 5.
Yeah, I've been on coffee dates with people where after the first date I was like, this is not happening.
Oh, just kidding.
and I was just like, you know, we're very different people. I can't see this going forward. And if that's what you see, then it's reasonable not to go again. But if you don't see a complete, like, stop, like this is not going to work out, it's reasonable to go again and see how things are going.
What was the other number?
The other number is the initiation, like
how many conversations?
someone caught your eye. Does it always have to be that someone catches my eye? Because this seems to me might be kind of that I'm judging the person based on how they look.
Mm-hmm.
So does it have to be that someone catches my eyes, or just that it's important to be kind of open to have just conversation, not on a date, just conversation with.
Yeah, so like we have friends who got set up with each other and are married, and that's okay. That means that someone puts you.
I'm fantastic at setting people up.
Not really. So that's okay. Like, I mean, if someone thinks that the point is, if someone thinks that you could go well together, or someone catches your eye, to have a conversation, and it doesn't matter that first initial, way that you meet. Oftentimes is because you saw someone, or they said something, or there was a conversation that you liked. But it could be that someone says, I know you two, and you guys could really match together. Why not have this conversation? So I agree. It doesn't have to catch your eye. Definitely someone could set you up or whatever that would be, and that's very reasonable. But
I also want to clarify, the term someone has caught your eye is not a physical term. It could mean like your interest is piqued because you serve with them, for example, or you met them in some sort of whatever and they had an interesting thing to say. Like, caught your eye means they grabbed your attention somehow, not necessarily physical. There was something about them that made them stand out from the crowd, for whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe also what I wanted is kind of to be open to have conversation with everybody. Mm-hmm. And this what makes the catch your eye, whether it is characteristic, quality, comes because sometimes it catches my eyes, just the physical, I'm missing a lot of opportunity.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to just dial back to here. okay? Because we want to talk a little bit about the role of men.
Okay.
So, this is a conversation that I think traditionally needed to be had much younger than this age group, okay? And when I was serving younger, I started it in the high school group, not about relationships, but just about like the kind of person that you're supposed to be. Because our high school kids, yeah, they're not ready to be in long-term relationships, but they can start taking on their role in other ways before they get to this relationship phase. And I think that if we had started this conversation when we were younger, earlier, it would have been an easier transition for us now. So that's what we're trying to do. But the role of men, God-given, not according to Sarah, okay, is to be leaders and initiators, okay? God created men to be strong and to have an opinion. I can tell you, okay, as a girl, one of the most unattractive things about a guy is a guy who's a doormat, okay? Passive guys, and this has nothing to do with like female empowerment and nothing to do with that, okay? I'm talking as an absolute. From a girl's perspective to a guy, there is nothing more unattractive than somebody who's passive. Somebody who doesn't have an opinion, somebody who's a doormat. And you know why that's unattractive? It's because I'm not wired to be with somebody who's like that. God created us to complement each other. And one of the things that I am wired to complement is his ability to lead and to initiate. His ability to lead a family and to lead a household. And it's got nothing to do with my capabilities, but it has everything to do with his desire to lead and to initiate. His desire to lead a household and to take care of a household. Not because I need to be taken care of, but because he wants to take care of us. That's the difference. And so we often confuse this topic with like female empowerment and feminism and whatever. His desire to lead is in no way a reflection of what you as a girl can or cannot do. It is simply a reflection of what he wants to do for you. That's it.
Yeah, these are innate things in guys, and some of us are more would like to do it more than others, or are your personality is more drawn to that. But this is something that all guys need to do in order to have a successful relationship, is to be leaders. So, and leaders doesn't mean to make every decision or bully someone into doing whatever you want. That's not what a leader is. A leader, what we're saying is to be strong, to have an opinion, not just be passive and let everything just do whatever. And that's in life, but also in relationships. And the provider part is, guys innately want to provide or want to care for the girl. Like, it doesn't mean that the girl doesn't want to provide for the guy or take care of the guy. We have different ways of doing that. But if you are in a place where you want to be in a relationship, you have to be able to lead that relationship.
And we talked a little bit last week about like our own personal examples about the guy wanting to provide and the girl's not really understanding. So like, I don't know almost anybody in this room except for maybe 4 of you, let's say, okay? But the people back there who knew me in my youth, okay, knew that I was insane, okay? Insane. And we talked a little bit about this last week, about how I didn't let him pay for me for like 5 months or something like that.
Something ridiculous.
Something like that, okay? And it was because I did not understand this concept very well, of his ability or his desire to want to provide for you has no bearing on your ability to provide for yourself. Nothing. Okay? And his wanting to pay for me in no way means that I cannot pay for myself. I can. But that doesn't change the fact that he wants to. And when he does pay for me, let him pay for you, okay? When he does pay for me, it does not at all take away from my ability to pay for myself. And it does not at all take away from that in his eyes either. He doesn't see me as less of a person because I've now let him pay for me at all. All it means is that I've respected him as a leader and I can see that this is what he wants to do, and I am responding to his desire to want to provide for me. Nothing more. So don't overanalyze it as like, oh, independent women, it's got nothing to do with that.
And when you're starting a relationship, you are building towards marriage. Like, at some point in time, the building is marriage. And, God intended the men to be a leader in that household. And there are many examples of that. So let deacons be the husband of one wife, ruling their child in their own household. And it had very clear responsibilities of what a man is supposed to do in that household. And sometimes we forget that, and sometimes in the age that we live in, we kind of, you know, think less of that, but it is something that's important for a relationship.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so we're just going to speed through a few things so we're running out of time. The other thing is that part of that leadership that God created in the role of a man or a husband or a leader of a household is the ability to love wholeheartedly and sacrificially. So we always take that passage in Ephesians of oppression of women and this and that, but we never talk about the guy's role and how the guy's role is supposed to be so sacrificial, and how, like, yes, wives, submit to your husbands, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means, but husbands, like, love their wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her, like how he sacrificed himself. This whole passage talks about the sacrificial kind of love that a leader is supposed to have for his household. Sacrifice is not easy. It's not easy for anybody. And so we always talk about the woman's role is so much harder. I contest that. Because this type of sacrificial love that's described here, that's not something small either. I would say that's equal and analogous.
So again, a lot of things that we're talking about lead to marriage, but it's things that you start off while you're dating. Okay.
So let's talk practical examples, okay? Because this is nothing if not practical, okay? So what is it supposed to look like when a man is a leader in a relationship? Okay, let's divide ourselves from everything else. Let's talk straight dating, okay? And marriage. What is it supposed to look like? Okay? A man is supposed to lead you to purity, spirituality, emotional security, and lead with love, gentleness, and confidence. What does that mean? So purity, okay? Is physical temptation a problem for you guys in your relationship? Maybe it's a problem, but is he trying? Like, is he trying to make sure that you guys are, maintaining your boundaries very clearly? Has he been the one to draw that line in the sand? Or are you feeling like you're constantly trying to bring that conversation up and constantly trying to push it? Because as a leader, it's his responsibility to lead you and eventually your household to purity, whatever form that might take. So is this something that you're battling with him about? Or is this something that you guys are on the same page about? Something that he's initiating, okay? Spirituality. Is it awkward to talk about God? Talk about church? Talk about faith? Is it awkward when he wants to go on Saturday night and you want to go to Tasbeha? You got to talk about your priorities, and your priorities have to be in line, and his priorities as a leader are very, very important for you to be able to assess. Okay?
And then emotional security is
big one.
Very, very important. So that one is very difficult, and essentially what we're trying to say is that, a guy, it's easy once you're in a relationship, you kind of want to stay in that place, and there oftentimes isn't, you're not comfortable to keep on moving on, or you don't want to keep moving forward in that relationship. You end up in a place where you seem happy, like you guys are going out, things are fun, you're doing fun things, like you seem to be happy where you are. But the guys feels like they don't need to move forward, but the girl needs to know that this relationship is moving forward, that it's moving in a direction that is towards, if it continues to go well, is towards marriage. And so if the girl is left guessing all the time, like, are we in, are we out, is this better, is this not better, like that's really hard for the girl, and it's not something that the guy should be taking lightly. So as the leader of that relationship, you have to be focused. You have to say, you know what, like, are we progressing in the relationship, or are we not? Are we moving forward, or are we not? Does she know that I'm progressing? Does she know that my feelings for her are changing, and that they're going in the right direction, as opposed to, she keeps guessing all the time, doesn't know where you are. Because if she doesn't know where you are, then she's going to end up going crazy. So she's going to end up saying, like, am I wasting my time? Does he like me? Does he not? Is this something that I want to pursue? And that's not fair to her.
And that often manifests in unnecessary problems, right? Like, if you take the root cause of any fights, you can strip it down to something like this, where she's not sure where you stand, she's not sure how you feel about her, you haven't been vocal about it, or you haven't shown it to her enough, and so she's conflicted. So emotional security is as much about letting her know that you're moving forward, as well as making sure that you guys are not moving forward too quickly, okay? When a girl is in, like, she's fallen and she's fallen hard, girls have a tendency to fast forward, okay? part of your job as a leader is to make sure that you guys are on an appropriate
Pace.
timeline.
Yeah.
Right? You're controlling the pace such that you're not moving too slowly, and if you're progressing forward, you're communicating that well, but also that you're not letting things unravel too quickly, and you're not letting things progress too quickly.
And for the guy, that means like, you know, guys, when you're in a relationship, you know the right words to say to get the girl to like to get her thinking past where you are. So whatever that means, if whenever you say I love you or whatever you need, you know, once you pull out words like that for a guy, the girl is gonna automatically move 3 steps forward. And so you have to know if you're using those words or doing specific things that the girl is already past where you are, and so you need to make sure that you're controlling the pace appropriately. So if you are not in a place where if you know what you're doing is going to move her too far forward, make sure that you're controlling that pace, because it is your job. The girl is going to inevitably want to move faster than you in most situations, and you have to slow it down, but not slow it down too much, because that's not fair to her.
And just on that topic of L word, okay? So there are a lot of things that we did wrong when we were dating, but there are a few things that worked out for us. So early on when we started dating, not that this is going to work for everybody, but we had a conversation very, very early on, okay? Like 5, 6, something like that. Like right when we decided that we were going to pursue dating, and he defined the relationship and whatever, we had a conversation very early on about a few deal breakers, okay? So what my deal breakers were, what his deal breakers were, reasonable expectations, and this concept of L word, okay? And we decided very early on that in order to promote this, okay, and in order to make sure that we were on the same page and nobody was getting ahead of anybody else or nobody was behind anybody else, that we were not going to use that word, that L word, until we were ready to like commit, like get engaged. Okay? So we didn't talk about that L word, we never said it, we never used it. The first time Rami used it, I then knew that he's ready to like get engaged. Like we've now crossed that threshold and he's moved past the dating and now we're looking forward to engagement.
And that doesn't mean that's the right thing to do. What we're saying is that that's how we chose, or that's how we controlled the pace, but you have to be cognizant of controlling the pace. Like you can't just let it happen. Nothing good just happens. Like you have to be clear about what you're doing.
And just this, we won't spend too much time on it, but like don't be a jerk, okay? Like you're a leader, but you're not. What's the English translation of like sisayid? Don't be that, whatever that is, okay? His aunt taught me that word. I learned that word like last year. Don't be one of those people that like lords his leadership over somebody. Like that's not leading with love or gentleness or confidence. Confidence is we don't want you to be passive, but love and gentleness is that we don't want you to be a jerk about it either.
What do you guys think about this guy stuff? Any questions, concerns, criticisms, things that make zero sense?
So we just gave a few like actual examples, okay? When I want Rami to lead, even now in the marriage, okay, I don't want Rami to come to me and say, hey, what do you want to do tonight? Where do you want to go? I want Rami to say,
not every single time, I do say that.
I want Rami to say, hey, I'm taking you out on Thursday night. We're going to dress like this. That's what I want to hear. I don't want someone to tell me. I don't want someone to ask me how to romance me. I want that. I want him to figure it out. Okay? And even if he gets it wrong, that's fine. Because he tried. And I'll tell him it didn't work and we try again next time, no problem.
And we'll talk about the girl's role when that doesn't happen.
Okay? And so there was also a question about how much should a boyfriend, can we use those kind of words here? Boyfriend, girlfriend, somebody who's dating, people who are dating each other?
We know people who don't like that word.
My dad, okay, never ever called Rami my boyfriend. For the entire time that we were dating, Rami was pre-engagement. So whatever acceptable term it is.
Significant other that is of the opposite sex. Like,
okay,
yeah.
I don't know, okay. Is it appropriate for a guy to lead his girlfriend? Yeah. In some ways it is. Definitely not to the same degree as how a husband would lead in marriage, but choose where to go on a date. That's leadership, friend. Okay? Have the difficult conversations. Initiate the difficult conversations about boundaries and deal breakers and timelines. That's leadership. Okay? That's appropriate in a dating context.
And that's your role as a guy.
All right.
Let's move on.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. Okay, girls. So I have to also disclaimer that this is one of two for the girls, because girls are infinitely more complicated than guys, right? So we get two, you guys get one. So So, girls, someone has caught your eye for whatever reason, okay? Conversation, nice shoes, whatever, okay? Just joke, not nice shoes, okay? Whatever. What do? Okay? Same first step. Have you had a conversation with him? Yes? Great. No? Why not? Have a conversation. You're not proposing to him if you strike up a conversation. You strike up a conversation with everybody, with Bob, Joe, and Fred. What's the difference? Have a conversation. Because we also have to remember, as girls, that they can't read our minds. Okay? And that their job is hard. It's hard to just throw yourself out there when you have no idea what the other person is thinking. It's hard. Have a conversation. Okay? If you don't want to have a conversation, that is your prerogative. But you may be waiting indefinitely for anything to happen to you, ever. Okay? We talked about how there needs to be something to pique somebody's interest. If you're not talking to anybody, you're not like Sleeping Beauty, where someone's gonna like fall in love with you because your hair is so beautiful. Like, I wouldn't want somebody to do that. I wouldn't want somebody to approach me based on my looks alone. Okay? So if there is nothing to substantiate somebody asking you out, don't be surprised if nobody asks you out. Okay? You have to be able to converse and to socialize in a way that isn't awkward. Okay? If you have had a conversation, okay, and I find that in our community, this is something that's very like muddy, okay? Have you been receptive to his attempts at conversation? So we have this like impression of girls that like you can't be too like
Keen.
Yeah, you have to be very like passe and like, oh, I play hard to get, and I have to have this like cold face, and like I can't show that like I think his conversations were funny. I can't laugh at his jokes. Why? Who cares? Nobody cares. We overthink this stuff a little bit too much, okay? Nobody cares. Be receptive, okay? If he makes a funny joke, laugh. It is very funny, okay? If he's talking to you and the conversation is going, continue the conversation. It's okay. Be receptive. Give him something that will substantiate further conversation. Give him something that will make him think, yeah, you know what? This was great. Let's do it again. But if you're standing there expecting him to just know automatically in your silence that you're amazing, it's not going to happen. We have to be a little bit realistic about this. Like, we have to be a little bit grounded about how this works. And there needs to be something that will provoke him to want to talk to you more. And your silence is not that. Okay?
Guys are very, I myself am very bad at reading a lot of signals that other girls put out there. Like, a lot of times, even like you'll have a conversation with someone, and then you're like, did she like me? Did she not like me? I have no idea. Like, and that may be because the girl is not as clear as she can be. Like, maybe she's trying to hide it a little bit. Guys are not good at reading girls. Like, we're just not good at it. Like, we don't understand. It has to be clear. Like, we're clueless 90% of our lives. I am clueless 90% of my life. And so I really need help to understand, like, is she interested or not interested? Because if she's not interested, I don't want to continuously put myself out there. And I'm not going to put myself out there for someone who looks like they're not interested at all.
And he doesn't want to stalk somebody. Like, if you don't look like you're interested, he doesn't want to be a creeper. He's just hounding you for no reason, right? Like, there needs to be a little bit, okay? I'm not saying, like, propose to him the first time he asks you how was your day, okay? But there needs to be a little bit of back and forth, okay? He needs to be able to see inside of your mind and inside of your personality, and he'll only be able to do that through conversation, okay? So, let's say you have, okay? And he asks you out. Like we said, asking you out for coffee is not a proposal, okay? You don't have to, like run and, assess your life's goals to see whether or not you're going to go out for coffee with him. It's okay. It's just a coffee date, okay? Say yes.
What about movies?
Sorry?
Movies.
What about movies?
Like going to a movie instead of going on a coffee date.
There's two sides to my answer about that, okay? The first side is the relationship side, where in the beginning you're trying to promote conversation, okay? And when you watch a movie, it's silent. So I would want something where you guys can actually talk to each other. The second half is my own bias, where I was not allowed to go see a movie with Rami until we were married. So Like, I'm trying to divide the cultural from my answer. The logical part of me is telling you, I want you guys to go somewhere where you can actually converse. The illogical part of me is saying, oh my goodness, a movie, oh my goodness.
Movie and coffee is fine. Like,
so your person, you know, you get to go to movies, and you know, and yes, Jamaica is movies.
Movies, like a good one? Like a good date?
No, yes.
I mean, I love movies.
I think going to movie is reasonable, but you have to follow it up with, you know, coffee afterwards or whatever afterwards.
Maybe later, like
Yeah.
maybe later on in the relationship, after conversation comes easily.
The point of initially meeting each other is not to hang out. The point is to talk and see if this is something you want to move forward in. Because if you don't want to move forward, there's no reason spending time together to do things that are not fruitful. Like, the point of the first few dates is to get to know this person in front of you. And so ideally you want to do something that is, you know, it's not stare at each other and just, like, don't make it awkward. But, like, I mean, go in a place where you're going to be talking to each other and getting to know each other better.
So, you say yes, you go out for coffee, okay? Similar to the guys, there's a few scenarios. It went well, great. Tell him that it went well, okay? When he says, I had a great time, do you want to do this again? Say, yeah, I had a great time too. We don't have to pretend, okay? We don't have to say, oh, I have to think about it, let me check my calendar for the next 3 months.
Or just not reply.
Yeah.
Like, you can just
Or
leave it for
reply.
24 hours and not reply.
Yeah, not reply for 48 hours, and then in 48 hours, like, oh, he stopped texting me. Okay, this guy's not interested, he's just playing around. Okay? Nobody is going to think that you're too eager if when he says, I had a great time, do you want to do this again? You say, yeah, I had a great time too. Like, let's not overanalyze, okay? Because the other thing is that, and like fast forward if we ever do a talk about when you're actually in a relationship, okay? They have to be told. They can't read minds, okay? If you tell them, I had a great time, that is you telling them, ask me out again. If you say nothing, that is you telling them nothing. So they will do nothing, okay? We have to be able to respond and communicate appropriately. This is where it starts. You had a good time? Tell them yes, I had a good time. You want to do this again? Yes, I will do this again, okay? It goes well, 5 good dates. Don't let it last too long, okay? If it's going well and he's not defining the relationship, don't let it last too long. Because you could be in a very, very vicious cycle where he can't decide what he wants to do and you're just sitting there waiting, okay? Don't settle. But if it doesn't go well, okay, similar to the gray area of the guys one, you have 2 options. You can either not say yes the next time he asks you, or you can just be clear and say, you know, I don't really think this is working out.
Yeah.
And that's a gray area, right? Like, that's your prerogative. And guys, I don't know what you would prefer. If anybody has any, like, you know, burning opinions about this, let me know, because I'm not a guy. But those are really the 2 options. Either you kind of just say, no thank you, I'm not really interested, or you just kind of, you know, don't respond or don't say yes next time, whatever. It depends on how deep into this you are. Has it been 4 dates? Has it been 8 dates? I don't know.
Has it been 1 day?
Or, okay,
Do you want that?
he doesn't ask you out. This is a hard one for girls, okay? So,
Oh, Buna has a comment.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to. What is a practical way for not to settle?
Not to settle?
So what to do?
Okay, so this came up when I was vetting this through some of the young kids, right, who are in this dating game, okay? And so there were 2 options, 2, 3? I can't remember. My sister's laughing at me. 2 or 3 options that were presented, okay? So first, okay, if he doesn't define the relationship, you are well within your rights to just say, oh. Because if you are taking his passive approach as a reflection of, you know, possibly his readiness to lead, not unreasonable, and you are well within your rights to just kind of bow out. Or, okay, some people would just ask him, where is this going? I'm divided on that issue, okay? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm divided on it. In the ideal situation, he does it, or he tells you he's not interested. You asking him, where is this going, sort of you've taken now his role. You've picked up the reins that he has dropped, and you've taken his role. And maybe he was going to do it, and now you've taken that opportunity for leadership away from him, Or maybe he wasn't going to do it, and you really actually just need to know if you should move on with your life or not. Possibly.
And it's hard to like, yeah, but the number is hard, like 4 or 5 days. Well, I like
It's also reasonable to give him some time.
Yeah.
Like 5 dates is my rule, but you give him 8, see what happens. I mean, I would set an upper maximum. Okay? Like after this point, if nothing happens, like I'm out. Okay? But I wouldn't give him
Don't
like,
give too much
an
time.
indefinite amount of time.
Yeah, because at some point in time, the guy needs to decide, is this something I want to pursue or not? And yeah, oh, lots of hands. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
great. So you guys are, giving a number 5 to 8. How much of that is based? There's a logical side to it, obviously, how you get along, you click in all sorts of ways. But how much is based on feeling and emotion? Because that can take some time, right?
Very little.
Very little.
Yeah, so we're not.
That makes me feel good.
Again, we're not saying that this person, when you define a relationship, doesn't mean you're going to marry them. It just means that you guys are, at a point in time where you say, you know what, I am interested in pursuing this further. Before, when you're just going out for coffee, there are no expectations of anybody. And so, like, I think, yeah, emotion is important, but emotion is going to, it's going to come. Like, it's something that needs to develop. It's not something that's going to be instant.
And I would actually argue that in the beginning, it is in everybody's best interest to keep a tight rein on emotions and to err on the side of logic over on the side of emotions. Because once you open that floodgate to emotions, they come fast and furious and they muddy the waters. So you want to make sure that when you open those floodgates, you are on a reasonable foundation. Because things get infinitely more complicated when you let emotions just kind of run free. So I would say, and I'm like uber like black and white about this, in the very beginning, I would keep a tight rein on the emotions, very tight, until you've sort of, established a decent foundation.
I agree with you guys. It's just funny how social norms out there, maybe outside of our community, a lot of things are based on emotion.
The divorce rate is crazy.
Our divorce?
No, theirs.
Oh, theirs. Yeah, I'm not divorced. But yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, if we do things the way they do them, then we will have the same outcomes that they will have. I don't want to have the same outcomes that they will have. So it makes sense for us to do things differently.
Yeah.
So I like the whole 5 to 8 dates, but then I think what I'm kind of questioning is are you saying that the man decides whether the dating can progress or should progress into a relationship, and then I feel like that should be a conversation between the man and the woman, in the sense that what if she's not ready to move into a relationship after 5 to 8 dates?
She can say no. We're not saying that, like, the guy, we're saying that the guy has as a leader, the guy should be the one that is thinking about, like, when to move forward and not making sure that this is not taking too long. If the girl's not ready to move forward, sure, like, that's extremely reasonable. But the guy has to.
But I would also
himself out there.
question, like, if you're going out on a date, the issue should not be whether you're ready to date somebody. The issue should be whether you're ready to date this person, right? So my caveat to that is that it shouldn't be about whether you're ready to move to the next step, because the assumption is that you are, because you dated him for 5 dates, and so you're dating with the purposes of possibly investing in a relationship. But if you're not sure about the guy, that's a different conversation. And so when the guy's deciding to define the relationship, there's 2 separate decision-making processes that happen independently. Do you like this person enough to want him to define the relationship, and does he like you enough to want to define the relationship? That's different from is she ready? Do you know what I mean?
Right, so I think what I was asking was the second part.
Yes, so this process happens independently. So let's say you've been on 2 dates and it did not go well. You come back here and you're done.
Or he thinks it well and you think it didn't go well.
Yeah, whatever. If one person thinks it doesn't went well, then
it
they're
didn't
out.
go well, yeah.
And that's it. He's not deciding anything for you. He's deciding how he feels, and you're deciding how you feel. And if that matches, proceed.
What I'm saying is, it's just the awkwardness of having to discuss that if you haven't decided.
Adult
What if the
relationship.
girl?
But there's gonna be relationships are this whole first part is so awkward, like or a lot of it is awkward. Like being that leader and asking her out clearly is awkward. Each time you're asking her, maybe the next time if it went well, you're a little bit more confident that you're gonna get a yes. But each time you're asking, you're putting yourself out there as a guy, and you're being vulnerable because you can get that no. And so it has to be awkward. If it's not, there is going to be awkwardness to it for sure. And if there is no awkwardness to it, then I'm not really sure how it progressed that way. Like, nothing is that smooth.
I have a lot of admiration for people, guys and girls alike, who can just have the difficult conversations. Like, even if it was me that was being, like, not interested, I have a lot of admiration for somebody who can be upfront about that than for somebody who shies away from that conversation and prolongs it unnecessarily. A lot of admiration. And even the people that come and talk to me, like, when they've been broken up with, it is a lot more admirable, and I have a lot more positive things to say about somebody who's broken up with me that way than somebody who's just kind of, dropped off the face of the planet. Right? So these conversations are going to be difficult and they're going to be awkward, but hey, welcome to adult relationships. We're not in high school anymore, friend.
Couple of thoughts. I think I like what you said, that there shouldn't be game playing, and it should be as clear as early as possible, so that it's not a time waster. Because if the person is not interested, or I'm not interested, I need to move forward. I'm not gonna be stuck with one person. I need to move forward. But maybe another, the other side of it. So this is one point. The other point is, what if the guy has defined the relation? You know what? I'm interested to continue dating, but she comes and says, I'm not ready yet. I don't know. Give me more time. How much more time?
So that happened to us.
Yeah. So
Like, if we're going to be fully transparent, that happened to us. And the context was, I felt like I was young, maybe in retrospect not as young as I thought I was, okay? And he was, like, older than I, but not ancient by any stretch, okay? Depending on who you ask. And he was ready to, move forward faster than I was. But I was very clear. Like, I am way behind where you are, okay? And if that's not okay with you, then it's completely your right to bow out. Because if you're looking for something that's progressing a little bit faster, I'm not there. So it's completely your right to bow out of this. But this is where I am. And that's where a girl's ability to communicate appropriately becomes necessary. Because I communicated that, not that I'm not interested, but I'm not as far as you are, he stuck around and he waited until I caught up, right? And this is now personal opinion, okay? Not at all rooted in anything literature based or anything like that. I think that it is advantageous when in the beginning the guy is further along than the girl. And the reason I say that is because once the girl gets to where he is, she moves faster. Okay? So the further apart you are in the beginning, the closer you are to the same page once her emotions come. Okay? And like when she falls, like, let's get married. We have that tendency to just like fast forward. And so if it takes the girl longer to get there, I think that that's good. Because then there is nobody pushing him to move forward when he's not ready. And it's a lot harder when you're mismatched this way than when the girl is far ahead and the guy is far behind.
So I think, yeah, so I think you have to be clear. Like, a lot of this is saying that the guy and the girl have to be clear about where they are in their emotions, and don't leave the other person guessing. So if you say, you know what, I really think that we're ready to move forward in whatever sense, and the other person says, I don't know if I'm there yet, that's okay. That's reasonable. There's no way that all the time you're going to be at the same pace at the exact same spot. That's probably not going to happen. But as long as you're talking about it and everyone wants to move forward, maybe not at the same pace, then you keep going. If someone says, I don't want to move forward, that's great. But if you're not at the same place but you're both moving forward, then that's all that's required.
So I'm just going to dial back to here, where you've shown interest, you feel like you've done everything right. Either he asked you out and he hasn't asked you out again, or he doesn't ask you out at all. Okay? What do you do? Girls, okay? We have a tendency, like I mentioned before, when he drops the reins, we pick it up. Okay? Don't do that. Don't do that. Because, okay, and I always get asked this question, like, can a girl ask a guy out? Can a girl initiate a relationship? Okay. Logistically, can you? You can. But what I'm going to argue is that what you want to do? Okay? Is the precedent that you want to set for the relationship a precedent such that when he fails to lead, you do it for him. In a relationship like that, what I have found, anecdotally, is you almost never get what you need from him. Intrinsically, okay, we are wired to respond and to complement to their God-given desire to lead. If you have started a relationship where he no longer has that responsibility, you will never be able to get from him what you need in terms of that leadership and that initiative. So, can you ask him out? Sure. You can if you want to. But what I ask you to consider is that it's a much bigger question than, are we going to go on a date, yes or no? It's a heavier question. There's more to it than that. And we have that tendency, we all do it. It overflows into marriage, where if they're not doing it, well, I can just do it myself. But my caveat is that what you actually want? Is that a reflection of what you actually want the relationship to look like?
And from the guy's side, it is not, if a girl asks you out, yeah, it makes your life easier initially. Like, great, I didn't have to go through that awkward phase of, being vulnerable and asking someone and the fear of rejection. But like Sarah said, it leads you down a road of being passive. It leads you down a road of not, expecting the girl to do things that it's not her role to do, and in the long term is not good for the relationship. And so we're not here to tell you that there's only one way to do something, but we believe that it is the guy's role to lead, and if the girl starts leading in that relationship, that the relationship will not be fruitful. Questions or anyone disagree?
Argument.
Yes.
Go.
I'm
All the
just
guys who don't
curious,
want to
you're
answer.
saying that in the beginning of the relationship, but what if you're already dating? Is that okay?
So give me an example.
So you mentioned the girl shouldn't ask the guy out, right? In the beginning. Let's say you guys are already dating. And the guy didn't say, let's go on a date.
Yeah, of course.
2 days straight. Is that okay with you? Because what you're saying, I'm just wondering if what you're saying is the tendency is that the girl should never, ever, 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 ever lead. Or is it okay for the girl to do that once you guys are dating?
I can give you my opinion.
Go out.
I mean, if you're asking me, like, do I take Rami out?
No, do you
on his
ever
birthday?
ask
I
Rami
do.
to go out?
Yeah, of course.
I do.
Yeah, of
I
course.
do.
We're talking about early
But-
on, like when you're in a relationship.
So
and
But that leadership has been established already,
Okay.
right? When I ask Rami out, it's not because he's failed to do it. It's not because I'm waiting for him to ask me out and the guy's not asking me out. That's not what it is. It's me wanting to do something different for my husband, but that leadership is established. If she's asking, so let me disclaimer, okay? If she's asking you out because she's waiting for you to do it and you're not doing it, you're not doing your job, okay? But if she's doing it like supplementally, in addition to whatever's going well already, that's fine. But she can't be filling a gap that you've left. That's the issue. The issue is not asking out as an absolute. The issue is filling a gap that you have left.
who's to be the leader in that relationship? Like, yeah, you're of course, Sarah's gonna want to take me out somewhere, and I'm gonna take her out somewhere, and we have different ideas of fun sometimes, and both of us want to do different things. That's fair and that's reasonable. But like, does she feel like she's being led, or does she feel like she is dragging you along with this relationship, like from the beginning? You know what I mean?
yeah, I totally get it. I think I was just going at the original point of when you're saying don't ask him out, right, in the beginning. Totally get that. I was just wondering if you want to go out and you want to take your boyfriend with you.
Please go
is
ahead.
Is it then acceptable to be like, hey, haven't seen you in a couple of days, let's go out, or is that the no-no that you're talking about?
Yeah, but if it's
But it
like,
depends on the context, right?
yeah,
Like, if she hasn't seen you for a couple of days and you're not calling.
exactly.
I mean,
Hey, people are busy. I'm not saying that.
We're
I'm
not
just
making
saying,
excuses.
No,
Okay?
I'm just saying, a couple of days.
Yeah,
As long as it's not a response to your absence, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
It's
make
not-
sure it's not. Communicate.
It's not. No, I'm always there. Don't
Just
worry.
kidding.
Okay, other comments. People
Anybody
have
else?
other questions.
Okay.
Do people agree with this, or is this like so backwards that it's probably not reasonable?
I'm gonna take your silence as agreement.
I don't know if you do, but
Okay.
we'll move on.
So I know we're way behind
Yeah,
schedule.
let's
Axe is
move
gonna
on.
start kicking me soon. So we're just gonna speed through this last part, okay? So we talked about how guys are leaders and initiators, okay? The role of women is equally important in that we respond and we empower, okay? So Rami talked about how guys he was trying to find a nice way of saying guys are stupid, okay? Correct, okay? In terms of communication, in terms of reading signals, in terms of reading cues, not the stronger species. Okay?
And the guys know that. Like, it's not like we're...
Nobody's offended.
Yeah, it's okay.
We are better at that. We're much better at that. Okay? We have a strong ability to communicate and to express ourselves using words. We're better at that than they are. And that's why our ability to respond is necessary in a relationship, because we know how to do it appropriately and better than they do. 100% better than they do. And normally, I sit here and I take an hour and I go through the story of David and Abigail. I encourage you, go home and read that story. Okay? Read the way Abigail responded to David, and read the way Abigail empowered David with her words. Because that, ladies, is what you're supposed to do. Their job to be leaders and initiators is hard and it's important. But your job to be able to empower them to be leaders, to make them into something that they didn't know that they could be, that is your job. And if they don't feel that, you're not doing your job. The same way Abigail did that, that's what we need to do, is we need to make sure that they know that we believe in them and we push them to be what they can be. We see their potential, and we are able to communicate that better than they could ever hope to do.
You can have a situation where I asked Sarah out on a date, and we are define the relationship in dating, and we go on a date that, sucked. Like, it wasn't a lot of fun. It was boring. We didn't do anything that was exciting. She has two ways of responding in that situation. She could say, Rami, that sucked. That was so boring. Why did you take me there? Or she could, bring me up saying, you know what, thanks for trying to do this, or thanks for whatever. Like,
it was something different that we've never done before.
Yeah, her words have the ability to tear you down really quickly, or have the ability to bring you up and make you feel like you are doing, you're doing well. And girls, you can every single situation, you can bring the man up or bring him down, and you're very eloquent with your words. And your words, the boy, although he's not, maybe you feel like he's not listening, he really is listening, and things are internalized. And so be careful with your words, because you have the ability to do one of two things: bring him up or bring him down very quickly.
I can give you just like a surface level example from our relationship. So when we first got married, we moved to Hamilton because we were both doing schooling there. I'm not from Hamilton. I'm not from Mississauga. I'm from the East. I don't like the West. We're all very clear about that. Okay? So when we were...
I love the West. Go West.
He's from Mississauga. I am not. Which is the Mississauga hate here. Not hate, just politely disagree. So when we were trying to figure out what our next steps were, he was applying for jobs, obviously, outside of Hamilton. Okay? And obviously, I was very invested in where we were going to end up, because Hamilton was lovely. It treated us very well, but I really wanted to come back east to, my comfort zone and my family and my friends and everything that I grew up with and that I knew. And so when he was applying for jobs, the two major contenders were a really good job in Hamilton, which would mean that we stayed in Hamilton, okay, or a job very much out east, okay? And so when that happened, I had two options in front of me, okay? I could talk about Hamilton, like, oh my, please God, no, are you kidding me? Like, you can't get a job anywhere but here. I could do that. Or I could celebrate the fact that he's being offered a job that is a really good job in Hamilton, despite the fact that this is not what I want. And I could make him feel like this job that he's getting in Hamilton, regardless of what it means for our life, is a big deal. And it's an accomplishment, and it's huge. And no matter what it means, like, where you lead, I will follow, no matter what. Or I could be Jezebel. And the same way I spend all this time on David and Abigail, I spend an equal amount of time on Ahab and Jezebel. So David and Abigail is what to do, Ahab and Jezebel is what not to do. Okay? Go home and read the way she treated her husband. Because the same way we talked about how girls are smart with our words and we know how to build people up, equally we know how to destroy people. Okay? This utter destruction. Okay? And we know exactly what we're doing. And so I would very much caution you about your delivery. Because from a girl's perspective, a guy's leadership can make or break a situation. A girl's communication can make or break a relationship. 100%.
Okay. I think similar idea, similar concepts.
We're running out of time. That's why we're rushing through. But I would love to sit here for hours and just do this with you guys. Okay, so this one, okay, is often miscommunicated as like domestic and blah blah blah. Okay, the same way God created men to lead, and to provide for us in their leadership, okay? He created us to provide for them in a different way, okay? And that way is to be loving and nurturing. People often use nurturing as a synonym for domestic, okay? For some reason in our minds or our culture, nurturing means she's going to stay at home and cook and clean for him. False, okay? Nurturing is not a manifestation of what you do for him. Nurturing is a manifestation of how you make him feel, okay? I am not a very domestic person, okay? 100%. That's not me, okay? I'm not. I love my job. I love being at work. I'm not domestic, okay? My not being domestic doesn't mean that I do not have a responsibility to love and nurture my husband and my household. Nurturing is a reflection of how you make him feel. And the same way he makes you feel provided for and taken care of and loved enough for him to want to do that, we have the same equal and opposite responsibility to make him feel like we want to love and nurture him. However that may look, okay? If your guy is all about food, cook, no problem, okay? It's not going to bring you back 60 years in the women's movement, no problem, okay? Very, very superficial example, okay? My husband, when he is stressed, needs two things to feel better. Only two. Very simple guy, okay? One is to play basketball, and two is a McDonald's ice cream cone. That's it.
I love McDonald's ice cream
That's
cones.
it.
Completely unrelated. I love them. I get them all the time.
When Rami has had a stressful day, how do I nurture my husband? I meet him at the door with his basketball bag and a McDonald's ice cream cone. Nurtured. That's it. And hey, my meeting him at the door with his basketball bag is sacrificial for me because I have two kids at home that are bananas. If anybody has met Toby, my gosh, the kid is bananas, okay? And so my being on my own with my two children who are bananas, okay, is a sacrifice. But that is the way I show my husband that I love him and the way I make sure that I'm doing everything in my power to make him feel empowered and loved and nurtured. It's nothing to do with like being domestic. Nurturing, I can't emphasize enough, it's not a reflection of an action. It's how you make him feel. And that is our job. Because we are the more emotionally sensitive gender. We get it better than they do. And because we get it, the responsibility is on us. And if he doesn't feel that way, if he doesn't feel like he's respected, and he doesn't feel like you believe that he can lead and lead well, you are not doing your job.
So a guy in his heart wants to lead. And if he is given the opportunity to lead, he will. But the girl has to be able to give that opportunity. And that makes him, you make him feel like he is doing a good job. You make him feel that when he's coming down and that he is not, in a difficult port, that you're nurturing him and bringing him up. And that, it sounds difficult, but and the guy's role in this part sometimes is a bit clear and the girl's role may feel a bit more abstract because, it's harder to come up with clear examples, but the take-home point is to feel loved and nurtured.
One of our friends, his thing when he's stressed is he needs to watch a basketball game. What does the wife do? Watch the game with him. She doesn't care. She doesn't know anything that's going on.
She learned a lot about basketball.
She did.
Yeah.
But you watch the game with her. That's your version of nurturing. That's fine. There's no blanket statement for what it's supposed to look like. Only what it's supposed to feel like. That is universal. Okay? So practical examples. Okay? Give him the opportunity to lead even when he drops the ball.
Because he will.
If you are in a relationship and there is enough potential there that you want to keep going, just wait. Okay? They will drop the ball. Okay? Even Rami, who's the best at this that I know.
I'm not good at this at all.
They
I drop the
will-
ball all the time.
They will drop the ball. Okay? When they do, okay, do not pick it up for them. Do not do that.
Or destroy them when they do it. Because you have the sense that you may want to.
Okay? Communication is key. Being transparent is key. But if I can emphasize anything above all else, is be cognizant of your delivery. Okay? Your delivery is everything. It will make him or it will break him. It will make the relationship or it will break the relationship.
Okay, any thoughts before we go to this
last section?
Yeah.
Sorry, Aki. You can stop me, Aki, if we're
No,
going
it's
too
fine.
far.
I have
Any-
the anonymous set up if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go quickly.
Okay, so this is the second thing for girls, okay? Someone that you didn't expect has asked you out. This person has not caught your eye. This person is not somebody that you were previously interested in. Okay? This person is not somebody that you independently have considered. What do you do? Okay? So, are you interested in him? No. Why? Okay? The reason I included this slide is because this could have been me. Okay? Had I not had a very vocal and pushy father of confession, okay, I would not have been married to the best thing that ever happened to me. Seriously. Okay? When you tell yourself you're not interested in him, ask yourself why. If it is something that is superficial, challenge yourself. If it is an assumption that you have made about him that is based on nothing, challenge yourself. Okay? I can tell you from a personal perspective, Rami was everything that I didn't know I wanted. Okay? Everything that I said I would never marry, Rami. Okay?
Mississauga. I always hear that one first, yeah. You know the conventions where the kids were like, Mississauga,
I was the one
and
going,
then someone says sucks? That's her and her kids. Like she's promoting the sucks.
Let me tell you, the first time one of my kids heard that I was engaged to a guy from Mississauga, she came and she kicked him and she ran.
Yeah, this little girl, she's like 5, 7. It was kids convention. Like it was kids convention. She came and she kicked me. I'm like, who is this? And I know her now as an adult. Yeah.
But so challenge yourself, because a lot of the times we don't dig deeper into why we think what we think, and we don't dig deeper into the assumptions that we've made and what those assumptions are based on. Okay? Had I just gone with my own compass, okay, I would have been like, bye. I tried, okay, bye. But I would have been robbed of the best thing that ever happened to me. So this whole thing is about making sure that you are not making decisions that are based on nothing. Okay? You are 100% allowed to have deal breakers. 100%. I had them, Rami had them, everybody has them. But make sure that the reason that you're not interested is because of a deal breaker and not because of something that you've assumed. Because if you've never gone out with this guy, how do you even know? How do you even know that he has deal breakers?
Yeah, if you, like, as the girl may have a clear idea of what she wants as a guy, the guy that she wants to go out with, make sure that the reasons that you don't want to go out with someone are not superficial or not clear. Like, for the girl, you will, if the person is right for you, your feelings will develop. And so make sure that you're not ending something quickly for not a good reason.
Okay, so quickly, there's like I think 2 or 3 slides left. So deal breakers. We also got asked about this last week. Okay, what is a deal breaker? Okay, deal breakers. We tried to define it, not Google define, just based on our own experiences. If it never changes, you can't live with it. That's what a deal breaker is. Okay, if there is zero progression on this issue, you're out.
And that's a very personal thing. Everyone has different deal breakers.
It's not a preference, okay?
I don't prefer, tall or short.
Yeah.
You know,
I prefer that Rami is 6'3", but that doesn't mean that a guy who's 5'3" is a deal breaker. I mean, depending on how tall you are, okay? I prefer that Rami has a job that works only 8 to 4 Monday to Friday, okay? But does that mean that if he does shift work, I'm out? There's a difference between preferences and deal breakers. Deal breakers should be something that is based on values and morals. Faith is a deal breaker, okay? If somebody doesn't love Jesus, deal breaker, okay? Not preference, deal breaker. Because can you raise a household with somebody who doesn't share your, like, foundational faith? Deal breaker.
So
okay?
if you're asked out and your gut reaction is no, ask yourself why. Is it a deal breaker or is it not a deal breaker? If it's not a deal breaker, I would argue that maybe you should give this person a chance to see if they are the right person to move forward with. Again, a coffee date is not a defining relationship thing. It is just a coffee date to get to know them better.
And the other thing I just want to mention before we move past deal breakers is other people's opinions of your deal breakers don't matter. All that matters is whether or not you can live with it. Okay? I might think that your deal breaker is stupid and shouldn't be a deal breaker. Who cares? Can you live with it? Yes or no? If you can't live with it, it's a deal breaker, no matter what anybody else's opinion is. If it's something that you can work on, sure. But if it is something that you absolutely cannot deal with no matter what, it's a deal breaker, no matter what anybody else says. My deal breakers, people would call me crazy. Doesn't matter. They're mine. I can't live with them. It doesn't matter. Okay?
And so you know yourself, you need to think about what those things are. Don't make a list of 50 or 20. Like, it's going to be a short list. Like, it can't be, an exhaustive list of everything.
We each had like 3 or something.
Yeah. So, but think about what things you can't. If this person does this, this is not something I can pursue. And if they don't meet that criteria, give them a chance.
Okay. Technology, very quickly. Okay. Change the game since we were young. Okay. Sliding into DMs and whatever.
For the worse.
It's a whole new world. Okay.
ICQ, baby. Yeah. I'm joking.
Technology, in and of itself, is not bad. Okay. Talking to somebody on DMs, Instagram, whatever. Okay. Intrinsically, as an absolute, not bad. What's bad about it is what we use it to do. So if you are using technology in lieu of being bold enough to have a conversation with somebody, bad. If you are using technology in lieu of having a difficult face-to-face conversation, bad. If you are using technology in lieu of taking a girl on a date because there's no pressure when you're just texting or DMing or whatever, bad. Okay? If you're using technology to prolong the point at which you need to DTR, define the relationship, bad. But if you are not, and technology is a supplement to all the right things that you're doing, that's fine. But often, this younger generation, maybe not you guys younger, has the tendency to hide behind technology. Like, I remember when I used to teach high school, there was like phases of how a relationship would progress in high school. First we were talking, and then we're dealing, and then we're chopping, and then maraf. There's like 5 steps. I don't really understand what each one was. But almost all of them were social media, like, central, until they got to the point at which they were dating. And even then, it was mostly social media. Okay? So, social media is not replacing what you are called to do as, like, in terms of your roles, God-given roles as men and women, adult men and women. It never ever replaces the difficult conversations or what is necessary for you to do. It can add on to it, great, but the second you use it to hide or to, like, delay or to procrastinate or to facilitate something that you have to do, bad.
So we actually decided after we figured it out the hard way, is that any difficult conversation cannot be had in any kind of texting or whatever, because inevitably it's going to go poor. Like, that face-to-face contact is very important. So as a guy, if you're hiding behind technology in order to not be clear with the girl, that's a problem. And sometimes we as guys have the tendency to do that because it's easier, because you end up not putting yourself out there, because it makes it so that you're not clearly asking her out, but you're like talking all the time or whatever. And I think that creates a problem and prolongs things much longer than it needs to. You had a question?
Yeah. So like, what if you like are talking with the girls? So you like, so say you see her and you approach her, you talk, and then you are like texting back and forth. Can you ask her out like with a text, just so if you don't feel like comfortable, like I'm asking her out face to face, but then you still do the rest of stuff, like go on a date and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna ask her out. I mean, it's very difficult to always ask someone out face to face. Like, you've had a conversation, whatever way you decide to ask them out. But you have to be very clear in that your intentions are to ask her out to go on a date with you. And sometimes technology makes it so that you are able to be more ambiguous longer.
Yeah, that's the real issue with technology. So let's say prior to the point at which you define the relationship, you've been on 3 dates, but you're texting 24/7, good night, good morning, blah, blah, blah,
Sweet
100
dreams.
times during the day. What are you? And the longer you do that, the more confused she gets, because the volume of your communication is high, but there's been no progression, right? So we would just caution you not to use technology to replace conversations that you should be having that would either progress or impede the relationship.
Yes.
So where does or when does a moving situation play
okay, I'm gonna disclaimer my opinion. Okay? And this is Rami's laughing because this is something I'm trying to talk about. Right here, you're looking at two polar opposite ends of a spectrum. The way God speaks to me, okay? So on this side of the spectrum, like how far can I get? Okay, I'm uber logical. Okay, when God speaks to me, He has to beat me over the head with it multiple times and back me into a corner. And there's nothing else I can do. This must be what He's saying. Okay. Similarly, like when it comes to relationships, everything is logic based. It's logical. If I have this feeling, that's not enough for me. Why do I have the feeling? Dig deeper. What's the evidence? Like, what assumptions am I making and what are those assumptions based on? Everything for me is stripped down into a black and white, logical, quantitative, like strategic plan. Okay? And that's why my job is what it is. Now,
So I'm not like that.
okay.
So I don't like Sarah very much like has to strip things down to, you know,
Black and white.
black and white. And I live in a, I don't have everything as black and white. There's gray to everything. I do think that emotionally, if I'm not like comfortable with something, that there's a reason for it. When I feel like God is talking to me or I'm praying about something, it is very important about how I feel about the situation as opposed to what is like A, B, C, and D in terms of, you know, things like that. And we're very different in that way. So when you say intuition, intuition is such a broad term.
But it's on your side.
Yeah.
Right? Like so when Rami prays, God speaks to him and He makes him feel a certain way. I'll never understand that, but do I believe that this is legitimate and true? Yes, because I can see that my husband leads and that God leads my husband and God is leading us through my husband's leadership. So even though I don't understand it, I believe that Rami hears God and sees God and is led by God. Okay? But I'm not like that.
And also, like, your heart is deceitful. Like
yes.
meaning that intuition. That's why I don't know what intuition means. Like, is it the way that you feel about something? You are gonna feel uncomfortable about a relationship for sure at some point in time. There's gonna be something in there that makes you feel uncomfortable, and so I would say that you have to dig deeper into why that feeling is there. So is it there because you are not comfortable with this person because of a specific characteristic that you can't move on with? Or is it because you're afraid of change or afraid of moving forward because you become vulnerable? So intuition is very, you know what I mean? It's a catch, and I would tell you to just say, why are you feeling that way, and try to dig deeper into that. So the emotion is important though. The emotion is very important. Sorry.
What I would probably say is Rami's over there, I'm over here. You should be like
in the middle
somewhere here,
yeah.
Okay? Where your feelings can be justified by logic, but at the same time your feelings are not dismissed. Right? Because you could have like a vibe, I guess, about somebody, okay, that could be based on something that you can't articulate necessarily. So my advice to you would be to be somewhere in between Rami and I, where you're trying to logic everything out as much as you can, but you're also not dismissing
your
a vibe or a feeling or whatever. Like that concept of intuition, like I don't have that. I don't have women's intuition. I don't have mother's intuition. I don't have any of that stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. I Google everything. So like, you know what I mean? Try to find the medium between those two polarizing ends of the spectrum.
So one of my questions is, a lot of what you're saying, like 100% I agree with, but it seems like it's on the spectrum of like complementarianism. Like, have you done any readings on like egalitarianism and like what the church views on that?
I have, and so we promote complementarianism with a ceiling, right? Like we don't accept everything that those like theories entail, but we do acknowledge that there is definitely a degree of complementarianism in the way that we were designed by God, and that complementarianism is restricted to man woman, right? And so man woman created, designed to complement each other. The rest that's involved in that school of thought, do you know what I mean? Like our adoption of complementarianism is restricted solely to the way a man and a woman are wired to be in a relationship with each other that is a sacrament.
Are there like any concepts in terms of like of the other spectrum that the church agrees with as well, or it's more of like very like right, like left field, like you don't believe in it?
I need specific.
Yeah. What do you mean? What?
Like it's very much. I'm gonna try to think of a specific example, but I've heard different perspectives where it's like you'll find yourself either side of the spectrum. What's important is that both people in the relationship are on the same side. Like whether it be innate role of a man and a woman. Like, so I just wanted clarification. But
I don't know if the church has a official stance on like the
Biblically, there's
yeah.
like biblically, I think it has that the man's role is a leader, and I that there's like many. I think biblically, like that I think the church would agree with that. In terms of like, you know, how complementary are you? Like, where are you in that spectrum? I'm sure everybody there's no one is in one side purely on that spectrum, but I don't know.
like the example that's used sometimes is the Ruth and Boaz, like where that is like a different completely approach and it's also biblical
Different approach to what?
to like being in a relationship.
So okay, with Ruth and Boaz, I wouldn't say that the roles were different. I would say that the circumstance was different and that the time was different. But I wouldn't say that the roles were different. I wouldn't say that Boaz was less of a leader or Ruth was less empowering at all. I would actually say that they're actually a pretty decent example of leader and empower, but in a different time. You know what I mean? Like, so I think we have to designate whether we're talking about roles or whether we're talking about societal roles, right? God-given roles versus societal roles. Because societal roles, yeah, Ruth and Boaz are something that like modern day would cringe at. But if you strip it down to God-given roles, not so much.
So I think we're out of time.
Wait, I have one more question.
So like we're out of time.